to get started. I'm gonna wait for it to die down so that our audio stuff is good. Okay. All right, this meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want your presence, not even on camera, to be recorded, there's the door. So thank you for coming to this town hall. Actually, I'm really pleased by this turnout. I was kind of expecting, it's the middle of summer, vacations and all that. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm gonna get the town hall started by walking through a couple of good news, fun, happy wins sort of stuff. So if you wanna go forward in the slides, and forward again, we have a new website. Yay! Yes. I have to thank Shay Hazy. She is, or was the chair of the marketing committee. She has passed the torch on to Brandon Hume. But her big kind of project to leave us with, yes, thank you. Her big project to leave us with was this new website. She worked with Lewis Media to bring us this. Now, this is what the homepage looks like. This is just a screenshot. I'm not gonna walk through the whole website or anything. But something I do want to point out that is coming, that isn't quite ready yet, is in the top you can kind of see this little some little letters up there. You probably can't even read it, but it says member area. And if you go forward in a slide, coming soon, but the intention is that this is where you're gonna go for all your internal sort of things. So instead of having to search through all the tabs and sift through marketing stuff to get to the director resources or to the policies or whatever, we're gonna have all that boring stuff that only we want, that we don't need our audiences and our auditionees to sift through either. We're gonna have that all in one page with meeting minutes and committee charters and contact information and just all this stuff in one place. So that is coming, not there yet, but you can see the starts of it. Something about this new website is that it just launched, so there's probably some funky stuff in there that we won't see until we see it. So if you are on the new website and you see something that looks incorrect or a little funky, or you see some Latin somewhere where it should be English, please email us so that we can add it to our list of corrections as we test the site. But it's very exciting. We're very thankful to Shay's work on that. If you'll go forward, I wanted to share again our scholarship winners for anyone who did not see it. I want to thank the scholarship committee chaired by Robert Solberg for putting the work in to award these scholarships. This is something that we were really grateful to actually be able to bring back and do since before COVID. So that was Molly Hare, Jacob Hodges, Trey Green, and Bryce Benjamin were our winners. So I just wanted to congratulate them and also thank our committee for that work. And then if you'll go forward, of course, we had a 2024 season announcement. So we have our posters here. I really want to give a big shout out to Isaac Mitchell, who did all of this. These are our preliminary posters. These aren't final versions, but he did these in a matter of weeks. I mean, absolutely crazy, so amazing. And we're really excited about the season, and we're also really excited to announce the second show, which I'm not doing today, so but I just wanted to tease you guys. So if you go forward,
that worked.
We'll get there. If anyone is interested in getting involved in one of these shows, I know there's a lot of really exciting ones to be a part of, not just as an actor. You can join the volunteer open house. It's going to be Saturday, August 11th from 2 p.m. to 3:30. That's going to be out at the theater. And that is for anyone who wants to get into costuming, I think. Robert?
It's actually the 12th. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Saturday, August 12th. And I'll update the slides for the recording for later. Thank you, Robert. But that's if you want to get involved in costuming or makeup or tech behind the scenes, anything like that. This is a great opportunity to come meet the directors, see what they need, and see what you can learn if you don't have that skill yet, or what you can share if you have it. Also, if you want to be involved in getting started for the 2025 season, if you go forward, you can join the script reading committee because it's that time of year again. What the heck? So applications are going to open soon. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be looking for new script reading committee members and a new chair. So we'll send out more information about that, but I wanted to start planning that in brains. So with that, if you go forward, I'm going to pass it over to Katie Lindbeck, our governing board vice president and finance committee chair. She's going to give us a financial update of the theater.
I know. This is really short and sweet, but the good news here is that we have exceeded our lowest predictions for each show so far this year. So we are, the not so great news is we used to be at 75% and we're more at like 54. So we have a ways to go to make up that difference. And that difference and our producing what we do still leaves us in about loss of net worth about 200,000, which is changing by the moment as tickets are bought, as sponsorships are purchased, so that is a very dynamic. If you hear 3 different numbers, it's true because it's a very dynamic situation. One of the things we can do to help ourselves is if you are aware of any business that would be interested, you think would be interested in sponsoring, or an individual who's interested in sponsoring a show, we're having more than one sponsor per show, and if we can get them, and that is something that we can do that really helps ourselves, along with ticket sales. But in the future here, you will see that the board is looking to address this loss with, really a dedication to accruing additional revenue, with a variety of tickets with a variety of techniques and activities. Because we got to keep an eye on our old friend inflation, which all of us want to ignore, but it comes in everything we buy, the rent, everything we have a means of doing business costs us more. When we keep our prices the same, it does this. And we can actually price ourselves right out of business. We have the capacity to do that. So, just so that's in your brains, and we will be looking at looking at additional activities. The board will be reviewing that, and we're looking at grants and what it will take to get grants this year. Very different from being a shuttered venue. So that's the financial update, and that's the short and sweet of it all. Any major questions? Because basically we have been getting good response. We just need to take it seriously enough, or put a little extra in if there's more different resources or different ideas. We'll definitely be entertaining them all. Yes.
I'm just wondering, are you, and maybe you haven't talked about this yet, or I know it's a ways off, but are you thinking the ticket restructure needs to be looked at again, or?
We have looked at very closely at the ticket restructuring, and it did what it was designed to do. It allowed people who had less money to attend, and we saw more of that attendance. It did what it was designed to do. I think you might be asking, is that ticket, so that the people who have higher tickets are basically sort of like insurance, financing people who have lower tickets, and we still made money, and we still made money on a 2019 inflationary rate, which we are at 2023. And there's a difference. And so, yes, we looked at it. We're going to be diving more into that. So if you have thoughts, ideas, questions about it, as we dive into more, I can either invite you to that piece or answer your question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, did the intended purpose of getting more people, maybe that couldn't afford it, but did it hurt us financially?
It did not.
Okay.
Actually, it did not. Only if, and this is going to break your heart because it did mine, only if we sell to too many students, we can then start to see a financial loss of that performance. Yes. Yeah.
When we established it, we looked at a weighted average that if you had the same type of participation we've been used to pre-COVID, that the revenues in aggregate would be comparable.
Yeah. And,
Pre-COVID.
yeah,
No.
yeah, yes.
So just to clarify, I think you said it, but I'll just say it out loud. So when you said we made money and it didn't hurt us, by changing to the 3-tiered structure, we made more money than had we not.
When the flat, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
I'm curious about grants.
Yeah.
Has the theater had grants before? And
Yeah.
do you have someone who writes grants?
We are working with someone who does write grants, and the theater has received grants. There's, I can't name them, but there's different grants that we've received kind of on a regular, smaller grants we've received on a regular basis. And we've received some larger federal grants. You know, during COVID, some of those were, and just immediately after, there was a bill in the legislature, and with the legislature this year, I have not found out what happened to it, but the legislature wasn't half there this year, so, but that it was supposed to help arts groups, designed to help arts groups in Oregon continue sort of after COVID, and we had our eye on it, but we don't even know if that passed given what happened with the legislature this year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question going back to the tickets. You mentioned the downfall of selling too many student tickets to Shrek. Now is those student tickets as discounts? I think I heard an idea that there was a concept that by changing into the 3-tiered structure and reducing the price in the wings, that consideration for no longer having those half-price tickets was on the table. Is that something I misunderstood?
Well, looking at how that discount is, looking at restructuring that discount for, not, looking at what was discussed is looking at restructuring that discount because it surprised us to realize that if you sold too many, you could actually fill the house and lose some money. That's
One thing that happened with Shrek was the understanding was that if you're on the wait list, you got the rush price, not the original price. So some people were in line on the wait list getting a half price ticket, whereas they should have been charged. So anyway, so I think there's.
and
that's a
Shrek
way-
was our first
yeah.
sold out house. I mean, one of the things I asked Sean to do is to look at our sold out policies because it was one of the very first times, that was gonna happen. And, all of these things, have, the reason they bear re-examination is they have unintended consequences. And we wanna be able to offer people and students a price that makes it an incentive to come. And then now we just need to look a little closer of what that can be for us not to lose money doing it. That's all.
So just to kind of go back through that, we had student tickets prior to tiering. And the same ramifications could be there then as well. So they're two separate issues.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, you want to press it, that'd be great, thank you. Okay, so one of the big things that of course is a topic of much wondering is where we are at on the leadership transition, and Stephen has been doing an excellent job in the operations manager role, but the question still remains, what's next, right? So leading this charge, Katie Lindbeck, Jeff Witt, Kelly Jakes are leading a leadership transition work group that we're calling Project 180 because it's not quite a 360.
That's half of that.
So I'm going to call Katie and Jeff up to talk about this and walk you through what this looks like.
So yeah, the 180, a 360 review of a company is you're reviewing employees, you're doing all of those things. We're not doing that with this project. We are simply looking at basically the governance structure of the theater. For those of you who've been here a long time, it used to be where we had Tony and we had Randy, and they were equals, right? We have gone to where we have the operations manager and then the technical director reports to that person. And so if I'm going to tell you, and Kelly's going to freak out, but I'm going to have you display the first image, because Pentacle Theatre is not structured like your typical community theater. Okay, and this is Katie's brainchild, and this is Jeff trying to understand Katie's brainchild. So, and make a diagram of it for you, so you could get a visual, because I think visual is a thing. Because
This is how we function.
This is how we function.
Regardless of what we think we are, this is how we actually function. And that's why it's important to look.
Yeah, we start out with the board, right? And then our staff, and then our committees, but then, so we start from the center and we work out, and each director is kind of their own island, right?
They're sort of we're centrally administered. And this had to do with how we began. Very simply, there was a small number of people. If you take a triangle as the easiest way to explain it, is that if Eric is costuming for me and Walt is doing my lights, and then you two are working for me, and then when and I'm directing, then when Walt directs, then we two work for him, and we bring, as lots of our founders did, they worked for different schools, so they brought their different people with them. And so they divvied up the tasks, and as they went and shared administration, they shared tickets, they shared marketing, they shared those central tasks, posters, and all that. So as we added people, it gets bigger, but we're doing all the same things that community theater does. It's just in not the same order, and it doesn't happen. Like, you can go into a community theater and talk to the artistic director about, if I want to do Guys and Dolls next year, and I would underwrite all of that. You have an artistic director who is able to say yes or no to that. We have a very different, anybody who's been through this process knows that we can't say, yes, we'll get a director for that. We don't have people that we can pull off the shelf. Our directors are sort of, if you will, part of this. It's an open collective, is the organizational title of this, but that always sounds like daycare or a food co-op, so that's why, it does, and that's the ones we've had. What the experienced people would have with this would be those kinds of things. If you're lucky, the Pottery Barn used to be, at the art, used to be one of those. But for us, we need to get people engaged in order to have it happen. We would have to solicit our directors. There's people, if you go to Lakewood, they hold the property and they have relationships.
This is an example of what a community theater typical community theater structure is, right? You have a parent, like Lakewood, they're through Parks and Rec. Many people don't know that, right? But that's their parent organization. Then they have their board of directors, who is in charge of their artistic director, who's either hired or appointed, right? Then into the group of individuals who are paid or underpaid, who help decide and produce the season. These people they hire, and we have we have this person, right? We have this person, really. Then we have a bunch of committees, like what we have, right? And then on that same level are the directors and all their performers. But we're not this top-down kind of administration. We're kind of this central administration. And what we're trying to decide, basically, with Project 180 is
with the one or two, we're not choosing between these two different models.
No, we're not. This is just showing you what a typical community theater is. We are going to continue to operate the same way we do. right? But if you go to the next one, this is gonna be the big question that's gonna be on
Surveys.
your survey and some of you might have gotten an email about that survey. We have taken 160 people from across the organization, some randomly picked. There's from audience up to board, up to staff, to everybody.
Committee chairs,
All the
directors,
things. And if you
actors.
did not get one of those emails, because we're gonna send out surveys today, if you were not invited to partake in that survey that is about to be sent out, over there on the Mac laptop is a sign-up sheet. You are free to sign up and select which role you think you fit best. There's a drop-down menu from audience to actor to board to staff to committee chair to all the things. Yes.
For folks who may be watching a recording of this, could they contact you
They
to
can
get on the
email
list?
Katie at pentacletheatre.org, and she can let me know who to send that to.
And we can, and if you're thinking you haven't checked your email in a week, you may not have seen it
Yeah, it
come
just came out on
through. So if
Thursday.
you want to ensure that you got it, even if you haven't, you can still sign up.
But basically, the main questions being asked of almost every group, except for our audience, because our audience doesn't really care about this, right? Is our big staff structure continuing with what we have, well, prior to COVID.
Yeah.
Because since COVID it's changed. But this kind of top executive director, operations manager, we're also looking at titles and things like that, who oversees the technical director. As we call this the unicorn. I call it the unicorn, right? I'm gonna say it. Or we have the board who oversees the executive director, operations manager, and technical director on the same level. This would be the two-headed monster, right? Which is what
In our magical creatures
which is what we
realm.
had for a long time.
For a long time.
And it worked, and it got changed when we had the last transition. We'll leave that alone. It changed, so we are trying to decide whether we should stay with where we're at or go back to what we had. And then there are several other questions that deal with finding out things here about our theater and who you contact and who reports
you
to
know.
who and all the things, just to give us an idea of what it is that we need to be clear about to anybody who wants to know about what our organization looks like. So really, we're trying to create a governance structure and delineate it so that it's out there for everybody. We're not trying to change anything, really, except for maybe this.
But that's under discussion.
But that's under discussion, and this is just going, you've seen two models now. The way Pentacle operated for 60 years, and then the one that's operated for the last probably 8 or so. So we're just trying to get an idea of what people are looking at for there, and
Something I would love to add just on top of that is just to kind of reiterate the point that this isn't an evaluation of staff. This is about really how best to maximize their roles.
Right.
What makes the most sense for them and for that role in terms of how are we already doing things? Does one enhance the process for everyone involved?
Right.
Does one make it more difficult for those involved, including the staff in those roles?
Exactly.
So that's the goal.
And that would be a 360 when you start to reevaluate each staff member
Right.
individually, which is not what we're doing. And you'll see when you get this question, because this is one of the main questions, the very next question is, why do you believe, tell us why you think this works best for Pentacle Theatre? Because we want to know that,
Yes.
right? The board wants to know that, we're put in charge by the board, so.
Yeah, and a reminder of the reason we are doing this and surveying our community is because at the moment, we have an interim
Right.
office position and we have new staff we've hired and we keep the board gets questions, what's going to happen next? Is your interim person becoming the long-term person? Are you hiring someone else? What's going on with Pentacle's leadership? That's what we get questioned by the board. And so before the board makes a decision, we are doing this. So we understand what our community believes and what our community thinks and what our community wants to know and where do we
Right.
have a disconnect where,
Like, for example,
yeah,
let's say I have an issue with facility, right?
yeah,
As an actor, who do I talk to?
right. And how
Do I know who to talk to, right? And maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. So we're trying to get an idea of all those things
for the long-term goal?
for the long-term goal.
And rather than make these decisions unilaterally at this board at this time because it landed in our laps, we are sharing.
Sharing the wealth.
We are sharing.
it is.
Don't let them tell you we don't know how to give. Okay?
That's what we do.
So-
We're givers.
Yeah. So because there will be lots of different points of view and we want to see, rather than just the people in the room, a wide variety of participants at different levels.
So again, feel free if you would like to be added to that and have your input shared to sign up over on the computer over there.
I know that I'm new to Pentacle, but why is it that you chose not to send it to everyone?
Everyone would imply all audience members, all season ticket holders. I mean, what defines everyone? It would be, and we wanted to do it with participants, people who have participated that might have a point of view on this, where most season ticket holders, when you come and watch a play, this structure
Doesn't matter.
may not impact you at all.
We took a random sampling of 30 audience members, but for like the director pool, any director who's directed in the last 10 years is
on
being
it.
sent this survey. So we're trying to reach out, every committee chair. So really the only one that's not getting, the only two that are not getting everybody are the actors and the volunteers. But everybody on the board's getting it, everybody on the staff is getting it, all of the directors, all of the committee chairs. There are 7 groups that we identified. So it's really a sampling of the actors and a sampling of the audience members, and volunteers, because there are so many. And I don't know that we want to sit through potentially 7,000 responses.
I would just add too that in the past when we've done kind of opinion surveys, oftentimes we get a pretty specific group of people that responds. And so this was an effort to kind of purposely and strategically identify a diverse group of people from different areas. And then if we get more from that, more people are interested, and that's great, but at least we have, a large group of people covered.
From across all the different areas.
Yes, exactly.
Does that answer? Any other questions?
What's the timeline?
August 11th.
Oh, as far as like when you kind of, I mean,
This
Oh,
survey
and
is
then
due
kind
to
of
us by
after.
August 11th, and we are presenting to the board at the August board meeting. So it's rapid. So when you get your email, please fill it out in the first couple of days. And they're not, the surveys are not like lengthy.
No.
They should not take you 45 minutes to fill out. This question might be the longest questions you have.
It is.
You pick the choice and then you tell us why you think that. Other than that, it's really yes or no questions. And there might be 6 or 7 questions total on each survey. So it's not long. This is the one that we want to know about though, for sure. And for you to spend some time on giving us your reasons why you think that works better than that for Pentacle.
Share, please.
It's
And press
I'm gonna go
send.
home and do that today.
Yeah.
So, and you might not have gotten it because I got like 15 of them that bounced back to me. So don't feel like you weren't necessarily included. Kimberly can tell you, I've been nagging her daily. Another one popped back at me, Kimberly. Can you look up and see what that should look like? So, and typing in 160 email addresses, oh, we added an extra E there, or
There's
kind
a
of
dot
thing.
where it
So,
shouldn't be.
because you can't just download and transfer all the things, because theater manager is spectacular. So, as the board and staff all know. So there we go. So feel free to sign up if you would like to get a copy of this. That's what I got.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to invite Ken Hermans up here. He's a member of the board, and he also chairs our bylaws work group. I asked Ken at the beginning of the year to take a look at our bylaws and in the ways in which they affect our election, particularly because last year was a little bit, I know there were a lot of questions around the process last year, and it was a little discombobulated. So I know some of that was confusion over the bylaws. So Ken, bring you up here and let us know the work you've done.
Find my tape. First of all, I should introduce, people probably know Sherry Ulmer and Robert Sahlberg, who are both on the bylaws committee. Jody had a previous engagement, so she's not here today. But I just want to thank them for their participation and for the work that's been started on this. One of the initial discussions that we had as a group was we could either go at this piecemeal and kind of look at pieces, or we could just kind of open it up. And so what we did was I gave everybody a copy of bylaws at our initial meeting, said take a highlighter, go through, highlight anything that's an ambiguity or confusion or something that you think should be questioned or looked at. We did that. And we will continue probably looking at things in a very fine-grained sort of way. But for right now, our charge was look specifically, particularly at things that would affect what happened with the previous year's election. And any ambiguities in the bylaws that could be cleared up that would avoid any confusions for this year. So next slide. We kind of identified 4 different types of issues within the bylaws. There's some cosmetic things that we thought this could really be cleaned up, typos, those sorts of things, kind of references to theater where we probably meant the corporation and not the office. And sometimes that gets confusing about whether we're talking about office staff or if we're talking about the theater as an entity, those sorts of things. Organizational. Sometimes things didn't flow. There are articles in the bylaws with headings, and sometimes there would be something under one heading that really pertained to something in a different heading. Clarifications, that's where these ambiguities would come up and kind of go, well, is that talking about old board, new board, which we'll get to in just a second. And then finally, there's some substantive changes where we knew and could understand what was being stated in the bylaws, but thought, there might be a better way to do that. We also talked a little bit about the difference between what should be in the bylaws and what should exist in policy. Because policies can be fairly fluid. You can go take something to a board meeting and action can happen pretty immediately, whereas you put it in the bylaws and you're pretty much stuck with that. So there's some things that we would want more fluid, and there are other things that you really want done consistently, kind of the same way, year to year. Next slide, Emma, thanks. So the first potential bylaw change that we identified, these aren't in any kind of priority, so use it that way. But there's some ambiguity about, well, there's probably not that much ambiguity. It says directly within the bylaws, member terms shall run for 1 calendar year, January 1st through December 31st, except for lifetime members. The issue there is people would sign on or pay their membership dues, and the question would be, are we paying for next year, beginning January 1st? So if it's November and I'm signing up for membership, does that mean my membership lasts from November to December? Or does it start with January and run through the following December? We felt if it was possible for office staff to deal with this, which is obviously a topic for discussion, that it would be better if your membership started with the first of the month of the month after you paid your dues. So if I pay my dues on October 25th, then I'm a member as of November 1st. And we set that first of the month sort of thing as, okay, that could be something that could be automated within an Excel spreadsheet or something, where it would tell you which members are expiring, so you can send out notifications a week in advance or a couple weeks in advance. You just run a query and you find out, okay, these members need a prompt, a reminder that their membership dues are coming up. Is that clear to everybody what's kind of going on with that one? Okay, so that was the first one. The second one,
Oh, this is still the same one.
that's still it. Oh, and there's a rationale for change. It eliminates ambiguity about whether a person is a member of the upcoming calendar year or the current calendar year, and it clarifies who would be eligible to vote in annual elections. Because there was some confusion when people thought they had a membership and could vote, they had actually either expired or they weren't a member until the following year. That is how it impacts the elections. The next is an ambiguity issue. It says the governing board will elect the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer promptly following the annual election. It doesn't say whether it's the old board or whether it's the new board that's coming in. And I think those of us who served on the board in previous years have found that most of the time it seemed to be the incoming board. But if you think about it, it says directly in the bylaws that you are a board member starting on January 1st. So technically speaking, if you're not a member of the board, you shouldn't be either voting for the new board, for the executive officers of the new board, or even nominating or anything like that. So that's an ambiguity that we felt probably should be addressed. And so by inserting members of the incoming governing board will nominate and elect the president. So anybody who their term is expiring, even if they're present at that last meeting, because it's traditionally in December and we haven't transitioned to the new board members yet, this makes it clear it is the new group of 9, that would actually both nominate and elect the people that will be serving in the executive positions on the board that they are part of, and not the people who are going off. So next slide, I think, gives that rationale as well. Clarifies which governing board members nominate and elect the executive board for the upcoming calendar year. So that was number 2. Third one, the governing board shall set the date, and this came up actually, let me read it. Governing board shall set the date of an annual meeting, membership meeting, so a little redundancy there. This is one of the cosmetic things that we addressed, in November for the purpose of nominating members of the governing board. And so it specifies November. Proposed bylaws change, and this came up at the board meeting, and it kind of coincided with some of the things that we had discussed in the bylaws work group, which is if you have that meeting earlier in October and you announce the results in November, then for the December board meeting, you can actually have kind of a transition meeting where the old and the new are all together at the same meeting. The newly elected president can kind of, I don't know, work with the existing president. There's just a transition period that might be a little smoother rather than suddenly, you're on the board and you're not really up to date or haven't even observed potentially a meeting prior to that. So it's mostly for transitional purposes, which I think is on the next slide. So it moves the membership meeting a little further away from the busiest part of the holidays. I realize October has like Halloween or something, but not quite the same as between Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that's going on during that time. And it allows more time to make the transition from the old to the new governing board. So those are the 3 major changes that we felt like we wanted to discuss in the town hall setting here today. And we could actually, if we felt there was consensus or support for these changes, we could do, if you go to the next slide, Emma, then we could potentially go ahead and put out a ballot with just bylaw changes or amendments, as opposed to waiting for the election when people might be more concerned about who they're voting for. Then I have tendency might be for somebody to say, whatever you say about the they may get a little more attention and scrutiny this way if they're on a separate ballot. I don't know. Second option would be to go ahead and do it the way we normally would do it, which would be along with the election in the fall or late fall, whatever that falls under, to go ahead and do it all together as we've done in the past, and kind of hope that I follow whatever happens as a result of that, but we obviously couldn't move the meeting back and all that sort of stuff, but we could do the election the way it's prescribed here, et cetera. So I'll pause now. One thing that the committee did say, I want to mention this note. Each change would be listed and voted on separately on the ballot, rather than do you agree to all of the changes to these amendments, say yes or no. We felt like it really should take them individually and vote on each one separately, so that we're not conflating or having an issue with people saying, well, I kind of agree with the first one, but not necessarily the second two, or some other configuration like that. All right, I've talked a lot. We have some hands. I'll start with Jeff.
I just feel like going with option one is the smartest choice right now, because we're trying to make a change that won't happen if we don't do it. And I think that's one of the healthiest things you can do, is have outgoing board and incoming board on a meeting together to make that transition better. Having served on many different boards, I just feel like option one is the way to go. I'll just put that out.
Bronca?
So, throwing the wrench in this, as they say, I've been on a committee, on other organizations where we have rotation, where you don't have a complete turnover of the board. Is that what this is modeled? This is a model of a complete turnover of all the members?
Oh, no. We'd have the same structure of 3 board members at 3-year terms, and each time 3 members of the board rotate.
Have people that are,
Yes.
okay, that's what I wasn't.
Sorry,
in that.
if I was
And
not clear about
So I was a little
that.
bit concerned, so it is going to be people who are veterans will still be on.
Yeah, we're not changing
Yeah.
that structural aspect.
This year just happened to be.
Kind of an unusual year, Mary Ann.
Paper ballot or electronic ballot?
So there's lots of paper, electronic discussion in there, and it really does cover both. And it does say now that if a person does not want an electronic ballot, this is in the bylaws, then they can request a paper ballot. So that option is currently on there. There are places where we cleaned up some of that language and made it a little clearer, because there was some confusion that if you've got 2 members of the same household, for instance, who are both getting electronic ballots, or one's getting paper, one's getting electronic, so you have to specify at the time you become a member. It's a proposed change that doesn't need or have to happen this year, but each member of a household would request at the time that they become a member of whether they want an electronic or paper ballot.
Have we talked at all about the financial impact of a paper ballot?
Uh,
Mailings are very expensive.
So we did all electronic this last year. I don't think there were more than 2 or 3 people that requested paper.
That's what I was gonna say. We saved a lot of money by switching to electronic, and by allowing the option of requesting paper ballot, we satisfy the folks that do want one, and it's like a couple people, counted on one hand.
Kelly?
Can you speak to the change, like if we, the membership says yes, all of these now, about the membership piece, so that people know they're a member in time for this year's annual election, right? If we're making these changes of the monthly. And we know that our membership has, we haven't been paying too much attention in the last couple of years, so I know as a board, we know we need to get the message out quickly. Anything you want to say to that?
Just that I think one of the major things we want to avoid is anyone not getting a ballot for an election where they think they're a member and suddenly they find out they're not because of this calendar year issue that's kind of firmly implanted in the bylaws. Jeff?
So I've been talking with Katie about membership quite a bit lately, and we are working on trying to get a table out, starting a Curious Incident every night of the show, pushing membership. And obviously this is not going to happen in time for Curious Incident, probably an electronic ballot vote by the 11th of August, but I could be wrong. But at least we can say this is what we're looking at. So
Yeah, and I for the people that get their memberships at that point, we need to be clear to them, I guess, that this is for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year, and will expire as of January 1st according to the current bylaws. I don't know if we can grandfather people in somehow if this amendment did pass, so that I'm not quite sure how that would work. We'd have to talk about it.
Something we can discuss for
Yeah.
sure. Either way, we would reach out to people who are currently members. We would put a social media blast out and emails out to people going, hey, you're not on the member list. Before we did a vote, knowing that it's around the time that, people would normally be re-upping, we would include that in our communications to people, for sure.
Yes.
For this time only, if they're gonna start trying to do memberships, could it be prorated for the number of months until next year or whatever?
that would have to be a board decision.
Right, but if it's gonna run for.
But that makes sense.
It makes sense. It's such a minimal amount though.
Yeah. But it's a good idea that we'll add to our discussion, for sure.
Could we potentially just explain the situation and hold payments, figure out, like if I want to be a member for a whole year, I'm here today at Curious Incident, I'm signing up, we don't know the outcome of this yet, hold my payment until they decide, then I don't know, I guess that gets tricky too, but it's
A little bit
you understand
tricky.
what I'm saying?
We certainly want people who pay and become members at that point to be able to know that they can vote when the election is coming up for.
Can we just grant a 15 months or 16-month membership this one time? I mean, so what, $25?
Special membership drive thing.
Yeah, get 3 months free.
Kind of like forever stamps.
Yeah. That's one of the benefits of signing up at the theater. You get 3 months free.
That's not a bad idea.
That is a good idea.
Balance out.
Yeah.
Okay.
When, as this goes, if we take option one and we go forward, charge forward this afternoon, when might we know what the result of the vote for bylaws is?
So it's how quickly we could put a ballot together and get it out, which I assume we're going to be talking about at our next board meeting, which if we wait until then, it could be
a while.
So we'll have to.
Yeah, the goal is, the reason we're talking about this at this town hall, and can anyone who also has feedback, folks who are watching the recording, you can reach out to Ken at pentacletheatre.org with your feedback. But the hope is that we can get that feedback in time for our board meeting in August, which is the 4th week of August. And then we can decide on whether we're gonna do this right now or not. If we do it right now, then I would expect, September, because it's electronic, so I mean, it's not quite as like a big overhaul to actually facilitate. So that's the goal, if people are in general consensus. Katie?
Well, is it something that I don't know that the board could do a poll email vote on, so we could have it earlier? Is that possible? Is it the
We can
kind
talk
of thing?
about it.
Okay, yeah.
We can talk
I don't
about it.
know if
I
it's the
just
kind
know
of
that
thing
there's
we
a lot
should.
of aspects to it, and I want to give the space to do it right.
Yeah, no, true.
Other questions or feedback? Ken at pentacletheatre.org. I will check my email more frequently, I promise.
That's all. Thank you everybody so much for coming. Again, if you have any other questions for the board or want to stay and mingle, that's fine.
Sign up for a survey.
And sign up for the survey. If you haven't gotten counted for it and you want to do it, contact Katie at pentacletheatre.org, or if you're here, you can go sign up right now. Thanks guys. That's all.
Yeah.